YouTubers, BitTubers, BitShooters, wherever you're watching this transmission, Mike Martins here with the Mike Martins channel. Okay, guys, what's going on? Well, there's actually quite a bit going on. I actually want to discuss the 2020 housing predictions. A lot of people keep asking, Mike, do a 2020 housing prediction. You did one for 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015. I've been doing one every single year. And I've been flat wrong. I've been dead wrong. Why? Because of Business 101. I was taught one way in school or high school or business class in high school, how things work, how markets work, supply and demand. You kind of learn those things and you kind of gauge the market. You can't time the market though, because we'd all be billionaires, but you could gauge the market and find out where things are headed, whether it's supply versus demand, whether it's looking at wages, looking at different angles of the market, whether you want to look at the commodities, whether you want to look at what is popular for whatever year you're in. But I've been dead wrong about housing because I couldn't gauge what the smoke and mirror government was doing. I would have never gauged 100% LTV. In London, in England, I would have never guessed in England they were going to do 100% LTV, loan to value. Sign here if you approve, sign here and you're good to go. And let the equity grow in your home. But equity never grew in the homes, and housing has been going down since they've started that plan. Then you have first-time home buyers loan in Canada. You had them in Australia. You had all this other crap. If you can't afford to buy it in the first place, why do you need a first-time home buyers loan, right? It makes no sense at all. Okay? Then we're going to get into, like, other things that are manipulating interest rates, bringing down interest rates to historical levels, and not to try and stimulate the economy to bring more money into the market and more people lending. It's gotten so bad to a point that they had to change QE into repo market, because if you start calling it QE again, investors and other people or the common man get scared, wondering what is going on. Why do we have to drop money into our market when we supposedly have a strong economy? Right? We get faulty job numbers, we get faulty everything. So it's really hard to gauge where things are going to go and why things are headed that way. We kind of see why. They played the supply versus demand game forever. Okay? But then you have all these homes in the market for sale. So it's not a supply and demand issue, because you have, I don't know, like 25% of the homes are empty, owned by foreign investors. Who was to gauge? Who would have gauged? Who would have gauged? Even the best economists on the planet would never gauge that Canada was going to bring in 500,000 wealthy Chinese to come in. They would have never gauged that. Never in a million years, 20 years ago, would people say, well, we're going to sell out our biggest mines up north in BC and there's going to be no Canadian hires. Just, you have to speak Mandarin to work there. You have to be fluent in Mandarin. Nobody would have gauged that. Nobody in their right minds would have thought that things would have come to where they are right now, that we have to sell out to the wealthiest investors. Nobody would have gauged. Money laundering happens all the time, but it's layered. No, it's not layered anymore. You just come in and buy our real estate out. I couldn't have gauged that. I would have never fathomed that the government would allow $200 billion laundered in Canadian real estate. Think about it. It's like a lake. You got a freshwater lake, right? Once you start bringing in laundered money, you know what it's like? It's like getting salt water from the ocean and dumping it into the lake. Once you start dumping salt water and more, the lake starts to die. The lake bed starts to die. The fish start to die. Everything starts to change, and it changes for the worse. But no one could gauge that, right? Now, from what I'm forecasting, what I've been seeing with the numbers, with supply and demand, what's turning over in the markets, I'm noticing, obviously, the Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, and the UK proper, and people living in Western United States. They're starting to gauge now that basically, very straightforwardly, that the proper people from that country that were born and raised, educated, even have degrees, even have a good head on their shoulders, and want to be productive, can afford to get into a majority. Canada's a majority of the markets. Majority of the bigger markets will never gonna. The Canadian proper middle class, working poor will never get into the markets. Period. Same thing in New Zealand. Same thing in Australia, unless they want to move to Tasmania / Hobart, right? Same thing in London if they want to move to Middle England, which a lot of millennials have been moving to Middle England. Same thing in Dublin. Everyone's leaving Dublin and moving to southeast or southwest Ireland, and that's just how the cookie crumbles, right? How do you think a lot of these cities got built? It wasn't a lot of these cities weren't built in these countries because of affordability issues. They were built because of expansion, people having children, people moving towards a better future, a better economy, a better, you know what I'm saying, expansion for farming and agriculture. That's what happened, eh? So that's what I wanted to throw up there. I really wanted to put this out there for you guys because I can't gauge what's going to happen, but I can tell you guys what I think is going to happen. Now, throwing the textbook away and what you learned in school and high school, there's actually, I'm thinking we're going to enter a state of stagnation just like Japan. They're going to keep pumping the money into the markets, they're going to keep manipulating interest rates, and they're going to keep screwing people over. When they keep doing that, they're going to keep devaluing people's savings. That's why Goldman Sachs and, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan this morning said they're going to probably see a $1,600 gold in 2020. Why? Well, because people are getting off the fiat standard, right? And people and countries are buying gold, right? So there's a lot happening. I just see housing get into a stagnation. You will see dips in certain areas. You'll see dips in certain pockets. You'll see dips in areas. You will definitely see it. You will start to see like areas getting hurt a bit, but then you start to see people running in there like mice to buy up anything that's in affordability. Why? Canada doesn't have that many major cities. Canada completely sold out. Canada has maybe 4 or 5 major cities, right? Where Texas has 14 major cities. So in America, they have still the room to move to get themselves into an affordable market and still buy a house for $210,000 or $160,000 in Alabama. They can still get into those markets if they have to, especially if they're professionals, especially if they're leaving because they're sick and tired of the crap they're dealing with. If they're in California or if they're in Oregon or Washington State, now they're blaming the tech sector in the West, the tech sector boom for no. I know a lot of tech sectors that live in the same apartment. So that's what I'm saying. There's like sharing an apartment. It doesn't work like that, guys. It's the amount of empty homes versus the amount of money laundered, plus the amount of taxes that are not being paid like they were because municipalities aren't collecting from the middle class anymore because they moved out to other cities. So municipalities are lacking. You're going to start to see the smaller cities have to pay for the big cities going forward, because there's no one there to pay for them, because everybody left those municipalities, and they're sick and tired of this crap. You're going to start to see them raising taxes. They've already raised property taxes. They've already announced across the board property taxes are going to be going up like crazy. They've already announced condo and strata companies that insurances are going up. Insurance companies are now giving you a $60,000 deductible if something happens. If something happens, then you pay for it then. So why are you paying for all this insurance? Condos are a scam. We're going to get more into condos next year on trends in the housing market. We're going to be discussing more about the condo scam. We're going to be talking about really what's hurting the middle class and how basically the only way out is to put money in the workers' hands. That's the only way. It was Eisenhower administration. A lot of money went into the workers' hands. It never went to the bigger corporations. It went to the medium-sized business to grow, because they knew at the time that they needed a private sector to support the public sector. I just did a story yesterday. America's public sector jobs is like how many billions of dollars to fund it, to fund people $100,000 cleaning a school, janitors making more than principals. What the heck is going on? Well, going in 2020, I really hope we could become more transparent with things and find out where things are headed. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. 2020 housing predictions, I see stagnation. I see a lot of people scrambling into smaller towns. I see people going into Tri-Cities. I see people trying to outsmart by doing things and taking on more debt than they could afford. And in the end, they are debt slaves. A lot of people are caught in the grip of the cities. caught in the grip of debt. And I look forward to seeing what happens in 2020. Hopefully, there's some sort of a collection, or some sort of a repair, or some sort of a proper allocation of funds when it comes to funding public sector jobs, so the private sector doesn't get on the hook for paying these wages and salaries. Let me know what you guys think. Mike Martins here, and this is my 2020 prediction. Let me know, comment below. Thanks for watching.